There were atrocities. The fact is they were after the bombing. The way it's presented is the atrocities took place and then we had to bomb to prevent genocide. Just invert it.
Let me ask you about the conduct of the actual war. And you mentioned The Guardian. It's interesting because you yourself recently had an unpleasant experience where The Guardian misquoted you over Srebrenica, misquoted you to make it appear as if you were questioning the Srebrenica massacre. But let me bring you back to the conduct of the actual war, because that was another...
The 1999
the bombing, which was also overlooked or selectively covered by Western media in general. Now, Amnesty International, among others, reported that, quote, NATO committed serious violations of the rules of war during its campaign. Numerous human rights groups concur and document various war crimes. One of them had its anniversary 2 days ago when the radio television of Serbia was bombed, the national television, its headquarters, killing 16 people. First of all, why were these crimes completely unreported? And secondly, you already touched on that. And secondly, is there any prospect for there being any responsibility taken for these crimes?
Well, actually, the crimes were reported, but they were cheered. It's not that they were unknown. Like the bombing of the radio station, yeah, it was reported, a TV station. But that's fine, because the TV station was described as a propaganda outlet, so therefore we had the right to bomb it. That happens all the time. It just happened last year, in November 2004. One of the worst war crimes in Iraq was the invasion of Fallujah. That's one thing. The bombing. There's something worse. The invasion of Fallujah actually was kind of similar to Srebrenica, if you look. But they invaded Fallujah. The first thing that the invading troops did, U.S. troops, was to take over the general hospital and throw the patients on the floor. They're taken out of their beds, put on their floor, hands tied behind their backs. Doctors thrown on the floor, hands behind their backs. There was a picture of it in the front page of the New York Times. They said it was wonderful.
And the Geneva Convention forbids hospitals
to be... It's a grave breach of the Geneva Conventions. George Bush should be facing the death penalty for that, even under U.S. law. But it was presented, no mention of the Geneva Conventions, and it was presented as a wonderful thing because the Fallujah General Hospital was a propaganda center. Namely, it was releasing casualty figures. Okay? So therefore it was correct to carry out a massive war crime. Well, the bombing of the TV station was presented the same way. In fact, as I'm sure you recall, there was an offer from NATO that they wouldn't bomb it if they agreed to run, I think, 6 hours of NATO propaganda. Well, this is considered quite right. How can it be dealt with? A group of international lawyers did appeal to the International Tribunal on Yugoslavia. They presented a brief saying they should look into NATO war crimes. What they cited was reports from Human Rights Watch, Amnesty International, admissions by the NATO command. That was what they presented. I forget, I think this was Della Ponte at the time, said that she would not look at it in violation of the laws of the tribunal because she had faith in NATO. That was the answer. Well, something else interesting happened after that. Yugoslavia did bring a case to the World Court.
Which also rejected it.
The court accepted it. And in fact, I deliberated it for a couple of years. It may still be. But what is interesting is that the U.S. excused itself from the case, and the court accepted the excuse. Why? Because Yugoslavia had mentioned the Genocide Convention. And the U.S. did sign the Genocide Convention after 40 years. It ratified it. But it ratified it with a reservation, saying inapplicable to the United States. So in other words, the United States is entitled to commit genocide. Therefore, and that was the case that the U.S. Justice Department, Clinton's, brought to the World Court. And the court had to agree. If a country does not accept World Court jurisdiction, they have to be excluded. So the U.S. was excluded from the trial on the grounds that it grants itself the right to commit genocide. Do you think this was reported here?
The World Court, though, excused itself from hearing the case trying the illegal